and welcome to a new tutorial. Searching Instagram, I found several popular profiles on the topic of cinematic photography, and I noticed that the composition of most of them is quite similar. Most of these artworks are nice scenes with a lot of fog and rain, reflective floors with the main character and car in shadow, surrounded by lights to create a silhouette, and most often in a teal and orange look. Another thing that connects these works is that almost all of them were created in Blender, so I decided to try use my Blender experience to see how close I could get to these popular artworks. In the 5-hour-long tutorial we will create this scene. I recorded every step, so the tutorial is also intended for beginners. After finishing the tutorial, you will be able to create any of these artworks. Here are a few examples I created using the same technique. Let's start creating scene. First, my recommendation is to create folder where you want to save all these files. For example, you can call this Motel scene or something, but I already have folder. So I will delete this and I will copy address of this folder. And now we can start with Blender. And first thing I will do in Blender, I will go with File, Save As, and I will call this Motel scene. Next I want to do here is create silhouette or base shape of this motel and place camera in scene. We can use this default cube to create motel silhouette, but if you delete this you can always go with Shift A and you can create new cube. And now I will press N to open this tab here. And now we can enter dimensions of our motel. Last time I used these dimensions, so you can just copy. I go with 18 meters for x-axis, 6 meters on y-axis and 5 meters on z-axis. Now I will go with numpad 1 to front orthographic view. Or if you don't have numpad, you can go with view, viewport and front. And I will bring this on 0 on x-axis, so this you can see this red line. You don't need to be completely precise, but if you want you can type here 2.5, because we have 5 meters on z-axis and origin is in the middle. To create base shape of motel, we can just go to edit mode and we can select this edge select here, and we can add with Ctrl R one loop cut on x-axis and one on y-axis. And now we can, with holding shift, select this edge here and this one, and now we can move this on z-axis. You can select this move tool, or you can just go with G to grab and Z for z-axis. Now we can set camera. I will go to object mode and I will select camera. And now you can press numpad 0 to switch to camera view, or you can go with view, cameras, no view, viewport and camera. But in this case I like to split this window here, so when you see this cross you can move on right, and now we have two same windows here, so this is 3D viewport. And I will now place mouse on left, and I will on left press numpad 0 to switch to camera view, and I will press N to remove this tab. And now we can see what we do on left and we can work on right. I want to change resolution of or aspect ratio of this camera, and because I want to create something for Instagram, I will go with this vertical aspect ratio, and I will click here to output properties and I will set this to 1280 and 1500. If you want, you can always change aspect ratio and make this more vertical or maybe something more horizontal and cinematic, but for now I will go with 1500. Now we can set camera, and I will put mouse on right and I will go with numpad 7 to top orthographic view, and I will place this camera to about here. But one thing I want to do here, I want to make this camera lower, so I will bring this value down. First I will set this x-axis to 90 degrees, and now I can bring this down, and last time I go with value of 1.45. Now I will go to camera properties tab, and I will now set this focal length to 26 millimeters. So this is basically zoom. If you go up, we zoom this Motel, and if we go down, we zoom this out, and I will go with a very low focal length because I want to catch more area. So we see this Motel and all this around. And I want to set this to panoramic because we will get this nice distortion on edges with this panoramic lens. And if you set this to panoramic and if you don't see this fisheye and another options, that means that you are in Eevee. So I will set this to cycles, and let's back now to camera settings, and now we need back this lens to 26. And if you now press F12 for first render, or if you go to render image, we have first render, but you can see that this is very slow for this very simple scene, and reason for this is because we have some default settings here and we need to change this. First thing I will do here, I will set this to GPU because this is much faster, and I will set this samples to maybe 100, and also this render settings to 100. So this is viewport. Viewport is when we click here, we have here viewport render, and you can see if we move this render go to 100. And this is render preview, so this is when we press F12 for final render. And you can see how much is this faster now. And next we have viewport denoise here. If you want to use this denoise, my recommendation is to use optics, because optics is much faster in viewport, but I don't have problem with noise in viewport, so I will just uncheck this. But for final denoise I will use this open image denoise because I think it's a little better than optics. Because I don't have strong computer, you can see my system here. So I have RTX 2060 with 60 gigabytes of RAM, so I need care about optimization scene. And I think this is good for this tutorial. And I still can render this scene with volumetrics and with lot of particles in maybe 1 or 2 minutes. So you don't need very strong computer to make a scene like this. And now we can continue with modeling this motel. So first I will join this area here. So right click here and join area and click on left to close this here. Last time I made this one part of this motel, you can see here, and I just duplicate this 4 times, and that's we will do now. So first I will go with numpad 1 and I will go with shift A and with cube. And now you can copy these dimensions here. So I will go with 4.5 meters on x-axis and 2.4 on z and y-axis. And now we have one part of this motel. Because we will now work some time on modeling this part, I don't want share space with this big motel and this point lamp and camera, because if you rotating this you can stick to some of these objects, so I want isolate this object, and you can do this with numpad/key. Or you can go with view, local view and toggle local view, and if you click this again you back to our scene. So I will isolate for now this object and we can start modeling this part. Because I know that this motel will not be so visible, if you look this render you can see that this is basically just silhouette with windows, and if you put just this base object it will not be big difference, but because I want maybe use this next time and I use this motel in this scene where it's more visible, I want for this practice make this with little more details but not too much, so I want also keep this low poly. And I also have tutorial similar with modeling this cabin, and we put little more details on this cabin, and if you want you can look for this tutorial. And now we will make similar but with little less detail than here. This is better example and you can see all these details here, planks, and this is better example and you can see all these details we made last time. But today we will make something more simple and much faster. This is reference image we will use for this motel. You can see that this is very low poly, but it will help a lot to make this modeling process easier. So now I will back to Blender and I will create new material here, and I will call this motel. And now I will go to shading tab, and you can see that we have both of this object here, so just press again numpad/key to bring this object here. Now I will bring this image to Blender, so just drag this here and you can bring this to Blender, or you can always go with Shift A and search for image texture, and you can select this, find this image and select. But now I will just plug this to base color. Now we need unwrap this, so you can go to UV editing tab and you can again numpad/key and change this, and you can select this material preview here and you can unwrap this here. But because I don't want all time jump between these tabs, I can just bring this UV editing here, UV editor. So you can just select this UV editor, and when you go to edit mode you will see this on left. And because I don't need this image here, I have one here, I will just join this area to make this simple. Before I unwrap this I want check scale, because scale is very important when you unwrapping objects. So I will press N and you can see that scale is not 1, so Ctrl A and apply scale. And now this is 1, and if you now go to edit mode and if you press U for unwrap and go with Q projection, you can see that this is unwrapped correctly. Now I will select only this face we need, which is visible, and I will now on left. If this is not selected you can go with A to select this, and now you can press S to scale this. And you can also grab this with G and you can move this maybe on the axis a little, because I don't want this window stick to this ceiling. You can see that this is not straight, but you can fix this if you want here, but I will not do this now because I will not get too much, and I will now start modeling this window here. Okay, let's modeling this in layout tab, so just bring this material preview here, and now we can start with modeling. and I will press N to close this tab. Now I will go to edit mode and I will start modeling this window here. So I will go with Ctrl R and I will add one loop cut here. And Ctrl R and one about here and one here and one here. And now we can select this face select and we can go with E to extrude and Y for Y axis. Or you can just press E and it will be stick on Y axis. And now I will go with I again and insert one face here. And let's now extrude this on Y axis but inside, so E and Y. And let's press I again to about here. And let's also move this, extrude this on Y axis. Now we have basic shape of this window and I will go with Ctrl R and add one loop cut in the middle, and I will now go with Ctrl B to split this window. If you have more loop cuts here, just scroll mouse down and make one loop cut here. And now I will also extrude this on Y axis. And now I will back to shading tab because we will use UV editor and we have UV editor here, and we can now fix this bad UV map. So with selected this object, this face, I will go with S. You can go with SX to scale this on X axis and just place this on white color. I will also select this and I will move this with G and X on X axis, or you can just scale this and place about here. And you can also maybe select these two vertices and just move this with G inside. And to fix these parts here, you can select these objects and with holding shift these faces here. And we can just go with U unwrap or U cube projection. And now I will go with S and place this to white color, and with this one you can select this face with L, this loose part with L, and now we can go with R Z90 to rotate this on Z axis by 90 degrees, and with this one also, so L and R Z90. And let's now create glass material. So we can go to material properties tab and we can add new material, and I will call this glass. And I will go to edit mode with face selection, and holding shift I will select these two faces. So let's first fix also this unwrap quickly. So I will also, so this one is good, just move this on white, and we need project this to again. So you can deselect face with holding control and just click, drag and click. And I will again go with shift, and let's just quickly fix also this part with U cube projection and just project this on white color. So RZ90 and RZ90 again, and L to select this part. And now I will just bring this here, and with G just move this on this white part. Okay, now we can continue with glass material. So I will select these two faces and I will assign this glass material here. And you can see that we change material here. For glass material I will delete this principal BSDF and I will go with Shift A and glass, and I will mix. If we put this here we have just glass, but I want transparent glass, so I will mix this with transparent. And if you don't have enabled this Node Wrangler add-on, you just need to go to Edit Preferences and Add-ons and search for Node and enable this Node Wrangler. And now if you hold Ctrl Shift and drag right mouse click, you can just connect these two shaders, or if this don't work for you, you can always go with Mix Shaders and just plug one here and another here. Now we can improve this glass material with some roughness variation, and for this I usually use concrete texture. And I found this concrete texture on Pixabay, so this is, I will share this link with you. So this is this link, and you can just download this for, but usually I found this my concrete texture on textures.com. You can just type here concrete and you can find a lot of concrete texture here on texture.com. And you can use any of this texture, or you can use this from pixabay.com. Reason I now go with Pixabay is because you don't need profile to download this, and for textures.com you need just make free profile and then you can download every day 15 these images. And last time when I suggest textures.com, few people send me that this texture is not available, but if you cannot find something I use in this tutorial, you can always find something similar. So if you use any texture similar like this, you will get very similar result. So if for some reason this link don't work, you can download any similar texture, and you can also use ambient CG to find free textures. So you can type here concrete, and you can download this also without registration, any of this texture. Okay, when we have concrete texture, I will bring this here, and I think I have problem with my mouse, so you can again always go with image texture and you can import this image here. And I will now plug this to roughness. And if you go with Ctrl Shift and click on this node, we can just isolate only this texture here. And if you want, you can go to edit mode and you can scale this image here, or another method is with Ctrl Shift, with select this node and Ctrl Shift and T, no, just Ctrl T. You can also change this scale, for example on 2. I will back this again to 1, and I will play with this in UV editor. Okay, and now when we see how this look, we can plug this to roughness. So I will back this node with Ctrl Shift and click here, and you can see that we get variation in roughness. And to control this I will go with Shift A and color ramp. And now if we plug this here, we can make more contrast here. And one thing you need to know, that this black color means value of 0 and white colors means value of 1. So white colors now means roughness all to 1. So white colors mean completely rough and black colors means completely shiny. So I want to make this window shiny, not too much rough, so I will bring more black colors here, and I will also bring this white color more to black to make this less intense. And we can also add some bump information here, so I will for this go with Musgrave texture, and this procedural texture is similar like waves. So if you go with Ctrl shift and click here, you can see how this look, and you can change scale if you want. Okay, something like this. And I will now go with bump, and I will plug this to height, and now this to normal, and back this material with Control Shift and click here, and you get this effect. And I will bring this all down to make this effect less intense. But we have also some distortion in glass here. And we can also back to this Motel material, and I will go with image texture here, and I will select this concrete texture, and let's plug also this to color ramp and to roughness to add some details also here. I don't want shiny parts here, so I will bring this down, and I will add more roughness here. Okay, so we get some details also here. And let's add some bevels here, so we can always select this middle part, and with Control Numpad plus we can expand selection. And if we now go with Control B, we can add some bevels here. And I don't want, if you scroll mouse up, you add more vertices here, but I want to keep this low poly, so I will just add one bevel here. Okay, now this is little more visible, and we can now back to layout, and we can continue modeling this door here. And if you go to solid view, you can see how this look, and we have some geometry here. And let's now back to edit mode and to material preview, and we can again with select this object and go with Control R, and we can start adding loop cuts here. And let's select these two faces and press I. So I will now back to with Control plus select all this, and I forget to extrude this, so Y to extrude this on Y axis. And now we can, I will add one loop cut here down, so I want distance, make this distance, so I will go with Control R to about here. And now if you select this and I will bring this up, and I have one problem. I stretch also this UV, and if you go with double tap G, you will now not stretch this. But you can also enable this in edit mode. You can enable this correct face attributes, and now you will not stretch this UV, and we can place this in middle. And now I will select these two faces, and if you now press I, you get this. But if you go with I twice, so I, we insert this on individual origins, just bring this down and this one up. And we can also fix this too. I will fix this problem with just K. So if you press K, and if you go with vertex select, and with K we can just connect this part here, and so K, stick to this vertex and just press enter. And now we can extrude this in with E and Y, and we can also extrude this out if you want E, Y. And I think we need also extrude this out. If you select one face and hold Control, Blender will select all connected parts here. So Control. So if you hold Shift, you will just select one face, but with Control, Blender will connect all this part. So I will now hold Control and click here to select all this, and now we can go with EY. Or we can extrude this out. And let's see how this look. And now we can back to shading tab and we can fix this UV if you need. So let's if you don't see these tools here, you can go with middle mouse button and you can now move this. And I want to select this edge select here and just with G move this. Okay, I think this looks pretty good. And let's make now this glass material, but I also want to keep this white color and these details here. So I will go with new material and I will now select this glass material and I will click here to make a duplicate of this object and I will call this glass white. And now I will assign this material here. So I want back this color information here, so I will go with image texture and I will select this Motel material and I will delete this and I will plug this to color. So you can see this texture from before, but I want also make this white. I want to mix this image texture with this shader, but if you mix these two texture you will get this problem. So this is just color and this is shader, so we cannot mix color with shader and we need to convert this also to shader. So to make this I will go with diffuse BSDF and I will just plug this to color and I will use also this roughness information for before. And now if we go with Control Shift and right click, we can mix these two shaders and you can see what we get. If we go all to left we get only this shader, and if we go all to right we get this shader here. And I will go maybe in middle to get to back some white color in this texture. And maybe we can increase this mask grip bump to get more details, more distortion here. And I will also scale this up to get more tiny details. I don't like these green planks, so I download this image from texture.com and I will share this link with you. But again, you can download this texture or you can just search here white planks, or you can also search on Google or maybe on Pixabay and you can download any of these. So this is one we use now. So let's back to Blender and I will now create another material and I will call this white planks. And let's also bring this, let's now go with copy this address and we can go with Shift A and search for image texture and paste this address here and just bring this here and plug this to base color. And nothing happened because we need apply this material to this object. And I will now go to Layout tab and we can go to Edit mode and we can select faces where we want to apply this texture. You can go with holding Shift and you can select this part here, but you can also go with C and you will get this brush here, so you can scale this up or down. And now you can start selecting these faces which we want to And if you want to rotate to this side, you need go with escape to remove this brush, and now we can move this to about here, and now we can go again with C and we can select all these faces. And one thing I like to do here, so I will go with escape. When I have selected this part, if I press something, I will lose this selection, and I can back this with Ctrl Z, but later I will not be able to back this selection. And if you want, you can save this. So if you go to object data properties, you can add new vertex group, and you can call this white planks, and you can now assign this. And if you for some reason click, and now we don't need select all these faces again, we can just select this white planks and click select, and we have saved this vertex group. And now we can back to shading tab, and we can now assign this new material here. And we get this problem here. You can see that this scale of this plank is bigger, so I will go again with U projection to unwrap this again, and now we can select this texture here, and we can press S to scale this. Okay, and we can back to object mode, and we can now play with this texture. So I will go again with image texture, and I will bring this concrete texture we used before to back this roughness details. So color ramp and plug this to roughness, so we get this roughness information here. And I want more rough parts than shiny, so I will bring this more to white. And we can again use this also for color information, and I will go with another color ramp, and let's plug this here. Let's check scale of this, so I can go with Ctrl T, and maybe I can make this smaller, so 0.5, and you can move this on y-axis, maybe 0.7. Okay, and now we can back this with Ctrl Shift and click here, and we can mix these two texture with Ctrl Shift and right click. We get this mix node, and if we go all to 1, we get this concrete texture. If we go all to 0, we get this plank texture. But I want multiply these two textures, so we will take only dark part of this texture. So I will set this to 1, and I will choose this multiply. So now we take only black colors from this color ramp here, and this is too intense, so I will bring this on left, and let's play with this y-axis here. Okay, and you can choose how much dirtiness you want here. I don't want too much, so I will bring this to about here, just to get some details. And you can use this plank texture to get some bump details, so I will go with bump, and let's go again with color ramp, and let's plug this to height, to color ramp, and this to height, and this to normal. And now we get this bump details here, and I will try invert this. Okay, and I will bring this to 0.1 and this all down. But if you go to solid preview, you can see that we don't get new details here. So we will also create some real planks here, but first I will add a bump also, not bump, bevel also on this door. So I will select these two faces, or we can just select few of these edges here and we can bevel this. So with holding Control we can select these connected parts, and with hold, and now we need hold Shift to skip to this part, and again with Control. Or if you are not sure with this Control, you can always select this with Control. You can always go just with Shift. So Shift, and you can select one by one. Okay, I think this is enough, and let's go with Control B to bevel this. Okay, this looks a little better now. We can now add some real planks here, but I don't want too much because I want to keep this low poly. So we can go to edit mode and we can add with Control R. We can follow these lines here. And now if you select these faces, we can go with EY to extrude this on Y axis and RX to rotate this on X axis. And we can, for example, bevel only this line here. So with Control B, and you can see how this looks. We get this plank here, and if you want you can go with select this edge here, for example, and go with Control B and scroll mouse to add one loop cut. And now with Control numpad minus we can subtract selection. So we have selected only this part, or you can always go manually with Shift and we can just move this to get this cut here. And we can add few more. So Control R and few here, and let's select few of these and go with EY, and you can rotate also this on Y axis, so RY to make some variation here. This is too much, and RX also. And you can see that when we go with RX we get weird result because we rotate this from this middle point here, and if we now go to individual origins, we will now place in origin or in any of this part. So if you now go with RX, you can see that now this works correctly. And let's go with Control B to add one bevel, and you can see how this look. And let's add some details also here. So E, and in this case X for X axis, and R Y. And another method we can use here, we can just go with face selection and we can select one of this plank, and we can go with Shift D and P selection. And now this is separate object, but we need set origin to center of geometry here. And now you can go with A to select all, E to extrude, and X to extrude this on X axis, and RY. And if you press L, you will select this plane here, and you can always go with Shift D and move this maybe here, and RX to rotate this, or you can go with add two loop cuts here, and maybe we can now duplicate only this face with Shift D and hold Z for Z axis and extrude on X axis, rotate just to make some variation. Okay, because this will be visible from this distance, I don't want to create a lot of geometry here. Maybe just few on this part here. So I will back to edit mode and let's extrude this on Y axis. And let's add one loop cut here. So you can always also go with, if we go with Ctrl R, we add loop cut through all this Motel, and I will now go with just with K to add one plane here. Now we don't have this lot of geometry here, just this part, and let's go E, Y and R, X and Ctrl B. And let's extrude this. That's this one, and let's bring this maybe this edge here, and let's extrude these two parts. So E, Y, R, X and Ctrl B. And now, because we don't use modifiers, we can easily join this in one object, because now we have few objects here. We can just select all this and we can go with Ctrl J, and now this is again only one object. I like this mailbox and numbers from original reference image, and I will now, if you hold Shift and right click, you can place origin here, and now I will go with Shift A. Let's copy this address first. Shift A, images as played, and I will paste this here, and let's select this image, and let's now go with RZ90. No, I will go with RZ-90 to rotate this on this direction. Let's bring this here and let's press S to scale this. Now I will go to edit mode, and I will just with knife cut this mailbox. And also these numbers here, so K, and just cut this part. And we can also use this as nice detail, so just select these faces we don't need, delete faces, and let's now go to edit mode and press L over this part and P selection. And now we have two objects, so this is one and another one with same origin. So object set origin to geometry and object set origin to geometry, and now I will just make this more three-dimensional. I will press A to select all, and let's move this here, and E, Y for Y axis. And I think this is because we can fix this if we select this in material preview, viewport, back face, I think, yes. And now we can, you cannot add loop cut. Yes, we can add loop cut with Ctrl R, but if you cannot add, you can always go with key to knife and add one cut here. And now we can, let's bevel this with Ctrl B, and now we can move this part to make this like mailbox. And let's stick this here. We can rotate this on X to line up this, and I will now again go with Ctrl J to make this one object. I think this is enough details and information, and is still low poly, so if we go to edit mode we don't have too much vertices here. And I can now go with Alt D to duplicate this or make instance of this object, so Alt D and X and move this about here. And now I will go with Shift R twice. So with Shift R we just repeat this last step and we get this motel here. So because we use Alt D instead Shift D, if we make changes here we will make changes or all these parts, but if you want to make changes only for this object, you can go with Shift D and now you can do what you want. For example, we can add make changes in material or in mesh here. But I will go with Alt D because I don't have plane to make any variation here. And let's just quickly see how this looks in render preview. So I will go to render preview and use cycles, and I want to make this world here, world properties more black, so completely night. And now we can go with Shift A and light, maybe point length. And let's see how this looks. So I will increase this light maybe to 100. And I will go with Shift D, X, and maybe we can put here only maybe 50, and I will bring maybe color to some reddish, and we can see that this look pretty good from distance. Okay, and if we put one with Shift D, we can put one light inside this motel, so we can see how this look when we have light on inside. Let's go with numpad 7 to top orthographic, and you can see how this look when we have light inside. And if you want to remove this visible light here, you can bring this radius down, or you can just click this uncheck this multiple importance. But I like this detail, so I will just bring this radius down. I like this detail here, so we don't need keep this perfectly connected, so I will go with GY and let's move this here, and maybe we can with GY move this little out, so we get these nice details here. Let's continue modeling this, so I will back to viewport shading, and I will now go with numpad/key to back to our scene. So let's select this, because we use same object data, you can always go with select linked object data and you will select all these objects. So this one I use Shift D, so Blender will not select this, so let's select this manually and let's move to about here. And if we go to material preview, we can see that we missed this part here, so let's just select all these faces and go with Shift D and Y, and I will scale this on Y axis, it is not so important, so we get also this part here. Let's continue with modeling, so I will now add roof tiles. So I will isolate only this object, and let's now create one roof tile. Let's see how this looks. So we need one part of this, and I will go with I will go with Shift and click here to bring this origin here, and I will go with mesh plane, and I will now press N, and I think on x-axis I want maybe 15 centimeters, and maybe on y-axis 40 centimeters. I think this is about this dimension here. And now let's isolate only this object again. So double tap numpad/key, and now we have only this object here, and I will go with Ctrl A, apply scale, and now we can go with Ctrl R to add one loop cut here, and we can bring this up, and now with Ctrl B maybe 2 or 3 loop cuts to make one. Well, let's bring this a little more up, and let's now go with Ctrl B. And let's now unwrap this. So I will go with A, U, Q projection, and later will be easier to unwrap this. And now I will go with E, Z to extrude this on Z axis to add some thickness here. And now I will go with shade smooth, right click shade smooth, but we get these weird shadows here, so I will enable this auto smooth here to fix this. Okay, and now I will go with numpad 1, and I will go with Shift D, X, and I will now go with R, Y 180 to rotate this on y-axis by 180, and let's stick this here. And let's add another one with Shift D, X to about here. And we need one more. Okay, and let's now create a new material for this. So I will go call this roof tile. And before we go to shaded tab, just select all this so we can easily with numpad/key bring this here. And let's try create quickly this material here. So I will go with color ramp, and I will add reddish color here. So let's first go with image texture, and I will again use this concrete texture, and let's see how this is projected to this object. Let's check scale with Ctrl T, maybe 2 or just 0.5. Okay, this looks pretty good. And now I will plug this to color ramp and this to base color, and now we can play with color. So I will keep this dark color, but I will add few colors more here. So I will add maybe reddish or yellowish color here, and I think this white color is also nice. So if you want more black, you can always move this, and you can play with these colors here. And we can also use this to add some roughness and normal information. So color ramp, and let's plug this to roughness. One thing I forget to mention here is that I want make rainy atmosphere here, so that means that we need more glossy parts here because of rain. So I don't want too shiny parts, but I want a lot of more black colors here. And let's add also bump details here. So plug this to height and to normal. And let's see how this looks. So bring this to 0.1 and this down. Okay, and let's now go with select all these three objects, and with last selected object is this one. I will go with Ctrl L to link materials, and now all these objects will be same material. But if this don't work for you, you can always just bring this with drag and drop, bring this material here. And let's now make some variation in UV editor, so we can just press A here and scale this down. And you can also rotate this if you want. Let's A, and let's now rotate this. Select all on left with A, and let's scale this also. And let's rotate this to make some variation. Now I will back to layout, and I will go select all these objects, and I will go with Ctrl J to make this one object. And now I will with numpad/key back to our scene, and I will select this object, and I will go with RX to rotate this, to try line up this with this object. And now if you try move this, this still work, but better solution for this is if you go to normal orientation. So now we can move this easily on this roof. So if you want to move this up, you can always use this y-axis on normal orientation, or X or Z. So if you use this global orientation, you get these problems here. Okay, let's back this to normal, and let's now bring this little up, and let's now add array modifier. So I will place this to about here, and let's increase this count here. I want to make this bigger than this roof here, so let's bring this to about here, and let's now add another array modifier, but not on x-axis. I will set one on y-axis, so we can use this count to array this on y-axis. And one thing we need to do, we need to go to object mode, to edit mode, and if we rotate this on x-axis, now we use this normal orientation. Let's back to global, and let's now go with RX, and let's rotate this to about here. And let's back to normal, and let's scale this little on y-axis. And we get this roof tile here. Let's duplicate, let's back to global orientation, and let's duplicate this with Shift D and move this on y-axis. And now I will just change this rotation to +38, so just delete this minus, and we get this on opposite direction. And with numpad 3 we can go to right orthographic, and we can place this here. And because this is not visible and we have a lot geometry here, I will just bring this count, not this one. I will just bring this maybe to 2. Okay. And now if we go to material preview, we have a lot of repetitive texture here, and let's try break this a little. So if we go to shading tab, and we can now go with noise texture. And if we go with Ctrl Shift and click here, we can see how this looks. So I want bring this value down, or maybe to 0.1 to see how this look now, and we need more contrast here to see this little better. And I will now bring just tweak this, and you can see how this looks. So we can now use this as vector. I will now go with mix RGB, and let's plug the one here, and let's use this as vector. And let's go with Ctrl Shift and click here, and you can see what we get. So we get white color where is this white color here, but I don't want white color, so I will use this, I will bring this to black, and I will also go with multiply here. I want make darker variation of this, so I will plug again this to vector, and I will now go with hues. I will plug this here, and to make this part darker I will go with hue saturation, and let's bring this value down maybe to 0.1. And if you want, you can make this, you can desaturate this part, so you can see that we have darker part here, and if we tweak these settings here, this color ramp, we can choose how much we want this darker part of this lighten. So if you want more details here, you can type here 0.05 or no 0.2 for example, and we get more this variation here, or 0.3. I think this is too much, and you can choose how much contrast you want here. I will bring this black color little to white to make this effect less visible. Or you can just bring this value here. Okay, we can now back to layout, and let's see how this look. Let's now switch to render preview to see how this look. Okay, let's we still have this main cube here, so I will delete this, and let's back to render preview so we can see this light inside. And let's add one point lamp here on top, and let's increase this to maybe 300. Okay, I think this roof hill is too shiny, so we can quickly back to shading tab, and this go to roughness, so bring this more to white, and this one also. Okay, now this is a little less shiny, but because we want to add rain in this scene, I think this is pretty good. And we need to fix this whole empty part here. So I will go with numpad 3 to side view, and let's duplicate all these faces with Shift D and move this on the axis to about here. Let's try cut this with knife tool. So I will go to X-ray mode and wireframe mode, and I will now go with K, and let's just make one cut here. So click here and enter, and again with K to knife, and let's try cut this part here. So I think when we press key for knife, we need press C to cut through. So key and C. And let's see now with if we press now C in edit mode, we get this brush, so we can let's now back to turn off this X-ray mode, and let's see if we can select this. Let's go to face selection and C, and let's see if we can select this part here. Okay, escape, and with control deselect this part you don't need. So escape, control to deselect this, and let's delete these faces. It is not perfect, but we can fix this. Let's delete these vertices, and this happens because we are not in X-ray mode, so we cannot select what is behind. So delete vertices, delete these vertices, and let's again try with knife, cut this part, delete vertices, and okay, and let's turn off this X-ray mode, and let's see if we can select this right side with this face selection. See, okay, this worked pretty good. Now delete faces, and let's with knife cut this part. And let's delete these vertices. Okay, I think this is pretty good. It's not important if we have. Just be sure to, maybe we can scale this part. A little to avoid these problems here. No, we are now in individual origin. Just go to back, just back this to bounding box, and let's scale this a little, and I think this is pretty good. Okay, this is we fill now this part here, and let's now again go to render preview, and let's add little more lights to see this better. So Shift DX, and I don't want too much lights here, maybe just 20, and one more here. And you can see that this looks pretty good from distance. And let's just for test add one sun lamp. So because this is night, I want to add bluish light to imitate moonlight. Okay, and you can see how this look. Okay, before we start with neon sign here, I want to add this porch here. So let's back to viewport display, and let's add with shift right click. Okay, I turn off these overlays. With shift and right click we can add origin here, and I will go with shift A, maybe cube, and scale this on the axis. And let's scale this also on y-axis and also on x-axis, so SX. If you want, you can rotate this little on X, and SY to scale this little more. And let's back to material preview, and we can add same this white planks texture if you want. And let's apply scale. Control A, apply scale. And now we can go with U, Q projection. And we can go to UV editor, and with numpad / key we can bring this object here, and let's scale this a lot. Okay, and let's back to layout. And we can now go with again with Shift A and cube, scale this down, and with numpad 7 go to top orthographic view, and let's place one wood part here. So I will scale this again down, and you can go to edit mode, and with face selection we can just extrude this down. I think this is big, so I will press S to scale, and now I will again bring this down to about here. And we can bring same material to this object. So apply scale, Control A to select all, U, Q projection, and let's rotate this with A, select all, and RZ90 to rotate this on the axis by 90 degrees, and scale this. If you want, we can go with Shift D, and I will rotate this, I will scale this all down. SZ to scale this on the axis, and SY to scale this on Y axis, and now we can go with RZ45. No, RX45. No, RY45 to rotate this on Y axis by 45 degrees, and we can make this nice piece here. And now if let's unwrap this again, Q projection, and because we didn't apply scale, you can see how this looks. So just Control A, apply scale, and now Q projection, and just scale this and rotate on the axis. And let's now go with Shift D, move this on X axis, and just rotate this on minus. Just add here minus. Select these three objects, and we can go with Control J to make one object. And now we can go with Alt D, X, and let's place one here, and we can now go with Shift R to repeat this process. And now we have these nice details here. Okay, I think I don't like this white part here. So let's see if we can use this roof tile also for this. So I will go with Shift D, Y, and let's just bring this array maybe to 4, and I will go with RY, RX, and let's place this here. And we can select both of this, and RX to rotate this little more on the X axis and bring this down, and we can also bring this down. Let's see how this looks now in render. And we hide now this light here, so we can bring this down. And let's duplicate this light here. So I will bring this also in this room. So Shift the X. And this is what we have for now, and later we will add neon sign on this roof.